Welcome back to Sailing Remission. In this week's episode, we'll delve into what really controls our life. It's not money, relationships, or the ability to sail. It's the weather. There is a saying that sailing is 95% peaceful bliss and 5% terror. But what they don't say is that 5% happens a lot more than 5% of the time. When the weather is great, sailing is magical. We get to visit places that you can only experience by sailing. The gentle breezes take us safely across oceans or across the bay. You get to relax at a pace that allows us to experience life in a way not possible on land. But when the weather decides to not play nice, well, look out. Lightning is one of the scariest things for us on the water. Here is an example of what it's like on board during a lightning storm.
Man, this was so calm a minute ago. Can't even see the island anymore. What these squalls will do. Got a little squall coming through. All of a sudden, they're just blowing 32 knots. Rain's going sideways. Our neighbors were starting to leave, but she quickly and wisely ran back under for cover.
I mean, that's coming down. Well, we just had lightning, but the thunder hasn't hit yet, so it's still oh, there it is. It's still far away. But I think it's getting closer. Look at it coming off the weather deck. Wasn't too long ago we were looking at town. Not anymore.
Wind's up to 36 knots now. Wow, that lightning hit right on top of us. I mean, it was flash boom. How you liking this?
A bit much, but not the worst we've been in.
Well, that's for sure.
That lightning was probably the closest we've had.
Yeah, by far. I mean, that had to hit right above us. I hope those kayakers... Oh! That is close. In fact, it triggered our security lights. I don't know if I want to be holding an electronic device right now.
Yeah, I know. I gotta put mine down.
A couple kayakers came in from town, which is probably about 2 miles away. And they were visiting our neighbors, the ones behind me there. And they left just before this storm hit. They were heading over to that pearl farm. We don't know where they're at, but they are out in this stuff. I hope they're all right. Cindy did not like that one.
You know, we thought we had big thunderstorms and lightning in Colorado, but this is
a little scarier here.
it's scary.
Because we're definitely the tallest tree on the forest here.
Yeah. I am really worried about those kayakers.
Yeah, Bree on the boat next door, she just braved the storm, went out on deck and was checking for them. I don't think she saw them either. And now's not the time to be out there.
Trying to maneuver.
Yeah, I don't see them out over. Oh, there's another lightning. That's pretty intense, but it's moving away. But it's still pretty intense. At least it didn't turn on our security lights anymore. That's got to tell me the electric charge is not as strong as it was. But I still can't believe those people are out, those Those kids, I mean, they look young. Well, kids, they're probably in their 20s. Are out there in this stuff. Well, you might be able to tell the weather is much nicer. We got through that storm, but just to give you a quick little update on those kayakers.
So we found out from Bree and Ian that their friends weathered the storm. They kayaked all the way back, at least 2 miles, to land, and they made it just fine. So that was a great relief, not only to Bree and Ian, but also to Bart and I.
Well, now that we know weather is the king, we look at it all the time. Even when we're just sitting there at anchor, we're going to look at the weather just to see if any storms are coming in, if we need to maybe let out more chain, or just to be on the safe side. But 2 main apps. The first one's called Windy, and they're both paid apps. $150, $200 a year for their premium memberships. The first one's Windy. I looked at that, but it didn't have as many options as Predict Wind, and that's the one we use. Now, Predict Wind, I can go in there and I can look at, see what the rainfall is, what the currents are, what the wind is, gusts, air temperature, the isobars, cloud cover, even the sea temperature. I mean, we can check all that, but the big thing is really is the wind prediction. Now, they do have 6 different models, and I'm not really sure on all of them, but we've checked a lot of them. We're down to 2 of them. A European model, which is called the ECM, and then the US model, which is called GFS. And I don't know what they mean, but I'm a little worried about the GFS, and that with all the government agencies being closed down, and I know the fact that NOAA's already been hit, we might lose that one. And that's pretty much it's widely accepted as the second best one, just behind the European one. So basically, I'll give you a little tutorial on what I look for. So let's say today I wanted to see what the weather's going to be like for the next week or so. After 3 days, it gets a little iffier by the day because things can change. But here it is. I'm going to put us on the ECM model and show you what we do. So here we go. So basically that's the screen. You can see over here I got the 6 different models I can choose for them. I got the wind, the gusts, the rain, currents, everything right there. So what I try to do is I go in the ECM, and then down here I can just boom, press up, and it's going to show me what is happening with the wind for the next about 10 days. And you can see those colors, the purple and the blue is very light, green is a little bit more, and then yellow and red is going to be 20 plus knots. So you can see, look at all that purple. We're right here where that little green dot is. You can see it's pretty light here, but out around us there's quite a bit of, not quite a bit, 10-15 knots. So we're protected where we're sitting pretty low. So that gives you a good idea. Now let's stop that one. I remember all that purple. Let's go to the US model, the GFS model. Let it calculate. I'll look at the difference here. It doesn't show we're getting as much protection from the island. A lot more green in there. Now it's slowing down a little bit. Like I said, the purple was 0 wind. And we're just getting a little bit of that purple here, a couple days out. So, they are different. So we got to look at more than one. And it makes it real important to know what you're looking at and making sure that we're not going into a storm or something. A quick little overview on Predict Wind and what we look at, and it has saved us many a time. Okay, next up we're going to look at what we do when we're at anchor. Well, I'm up on the bow. I want to show you what you already know are probably one of our most important safety features is down there. That's our anchor line. We've run an anchor out, I think about 50 feet. So we're about 5 to 1 for our depth times how far we have in terms of feet out of anchor. And that holds us pretty good. But besides just having all that out, we still could drag our anchor or break loose. And so now we always set up an anchor alarm, which Cindy will talk to you about in a few minutes. But besides that, not even just an anchor alarm. As you could see, a lot of these boats out here are on moorings. We've broken loose on a mooring where we chafed through both of our mooring lines and this type of wind. And so we always set the anchor alarm for, both anchors and for moorings. In fact, let's head back and have Cindy explain to you exactly what we do with that.
When we set the anchor, we often set an anchor alarm. And the reason being is we want to make sure that we're holding steady. And if the wind shifts or the sand shifts, we're not moving, because we'll move quickly in a lot of cases. We typically use, when I'm setting the anchor and Bart's decided where we should go, we use the Anchor Pro, which is on my iPad. It's a nice little app. And if I click on it, right now I've got the anchor set. We're 47 feet away from the anchor, and we're at a bearing of 49 degrees. And that goes all the way from 360 down to 0 and back all night long. And it says in this case the GPS accuracy is about 24 feet, because I'm sitting back in the salon versus up front when I set the anchor. You can see here that I've set the allowed distance at 125 feet. An alarm will go on when I set it.
Now, why did you set it at 125 feet?
Just because of the boats around us, I didn't want us to slip any further than that. If you can see we're at 87 feet. As we swing, the boat swings on the anchor, we can go past that 125. If I set it less, the anchorage alarm is going off all the time, and that's kind of annoying. So I found, like, at this point in this anchorage, 125 to 150 feet is good for us, and that'll give us time to react and come up and check if we're sleeping, check everything to ensure that we're not moving and we're just sliding.
Plus, isn't part of that of how much chain we put out?
And how much chain we put out, yes. So that's one look. I keep the phone here all the time because it's set. Here I can cancel it, and then I can reset the distance if I need to. And the other thing we look at is, so this is kind of visual of where our anchor is, and that blue dot right there is our boat. So you can see we've kind of swung. This is the 150, and this is the 125. So if our boat goes outside of those two parameters, the anchor alarm will go off, and it sounds like a police is tracking us down. So it's something that we won't miss.
Okay, and you can also see with the 125 to 150, that's generally from where we set the anchor and where the prevailing wind is at.
Yeah.
Because we might go a little further out that way, or that's the way we're going to be swinging most of the time.
Yep.
But if we go out to here, that means we've actually pulled that anchor around, and that's when it can get, loose because it's no longer embedded.
And we swing a lot here in this anchorage because, one, the winds come in, but beyond that, at night when the winds die and there's very little current, we just kind of float. And so often we're floating one direction, and a lighter boat might be floating a different direction, and a heavier boat might be floating a different direction. So we just got to make sure that boats like ours and the one across the way aren't floating into each other. And so that's where we want to just be careful and set the anchorage.
We have found that in our 2+ years, we've broken loose, 2 times?
Well, once in Grenada, and you broke loose here.
Yeah. In fact, right about where we are now.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've only broken loose twice, but get this, both times one of us was not on the boat.
Yeah, we were alone.
Yeah. The first time, was in Grenada. Cindy was on the boat by herself. I had gone into customs and she texted me that she broke loose, and customs wouldn't let me leave. And because once you started there, you had to finish the paperwork. So luckily, the cruising community came to her rescue and helped her get reset and all that. And by the time I got there, I was in a panic. I get there and they're all just sitting around having a glass of wine and thinking, oh, no big deal. That's the nice thing about this cruiser community. And then when I was here, it was during a week where we had huge winds. In fact, I had to tie down the sail bag one day because we were supposed to get 50-knot winds, and those winds came, not a problem. But 3 days later, the winds changed direction, and we were at 30 knots. And because we'd made 5 knots or 50 knots with no problem, I didn't set my anchor alarm. I thought, well, we're obviously in. And then all of a sudden, I felt us hit the bottom. And we're in a very shallow area. In fact, we're in probably 8 feet of water. Well, I was in less than 4 feet of water. And luckily, some friends, they became friends of ours, saw that I was actually heading towards their boat. They jumped into their tender in the 30-plus knot winds, came on board, and helped me reset my anchor. So, cruising community is a side benefit that is not part of the technology we've got going, but they sure make a difference. So, because of that, we always set that anchor alarm. In fact, Cindy's always carrying that around with her. In fact, I didn't have to go get her phone. It was already next to her. Well, thank you for making it this far in the video. I do have one more favor to ask. Now, help us please appease the God of Winds and keep us safe for the rest of the time we're on Remission. So comment down below and just say fair winds and calm seas, and maybe that'll get us through. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. If an electrician's son gets in trouble, do you ground him? Next time you have a bad day, consider this. I was aroused one day and I ran into the wall and I broke my nose.